Hello and welcome to the webinar Uncovering Change, Fatigue, and Burnout. Specifically through change, we're just going to give a couple minutes for more people to come into the room. And we'll be starting exactly at 8:30 PST. My name is Margaret Graziano, and today is going to be an action-packed, content-rich 1 hour. You will get a recording, and then it'll also be available up on YouTube. So you don't have to worry about writing frenetically. Just listen and take in what resonates for you. And we'll just give it a few minutes, like I said, and I'm kind of playing double duty because Brennan had to run upstairs for something. So I might have to let some other people in. Welcome anybody that's new, that's coming in. We've got about, not even a minute. My name is Margaret Graziano, and I am the founder and president of Keen Alignment. Our organization focused for the first 7 years on working with organizations to build a better culture. And then, as with many businesses, your customers tell you what they need. And about 4 years ago, even actually before COVID, but people started calling us because they wanted change readiness. They wanted to evolve their staff and their leadership so that they could manage and navigate what was happening with change and all the changes happening in the world today. So we started doing 90% of our work about 4 years ago was working with organizations through change. So we're going to get started. And again, this is recorded and you can get a copy of the recording. You can also get a copy of the slides. So don't feel like you have to write like crazy because there's a lot of content here. So welcome, and we're going to get started. So what is burnout? People could experience burnout by the alarm clock, like these are some signs of burnout. The alarm clock goes off and you're pausing it, snoozing it. You wake up into a state of, oh shit, or dread every day. They give you one more project, and even though you should be excited about that project, you're not excited about that project. You're overwhelmed. Your brain cannot even consume how you're going to handle one more thing. Those are some signs of burnout. So there's emotional burnout, relationships. This is, you just can't deal with this person anymore. They're always bringing drama, or they're bifurcating you, or they're thwarting your intentions, or there's always an argument or an upset. And that's a big point of friction in organizations today, because there's not enough emphasis put on how do we treat each other? How are we kind? How do we get work done through flow, not friction? And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how to bring flow to what could be friction. But relationships are a big source. This is a brand new office, brand new setup for me. So you'll see me like, where is that? So emotional relationships are the first and most impactful areas of burnout that impact burnout and cause burnout. Next is physical lifestyle. Like, I have a client, he's a brand new vice president, and he sent an email yesterday, and he was so proud of the email that he sent to his team. He said, I want you to have a quality of life. We're going to be working from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. and everybody's going to be off at 5 so they can have time with their family. And I'm thinking, wow, 6 a.m. is personal time. That's like meditation time, exercise time, get ready time, get ready for the day. He doesn't know it yet, but he will learn because he's working with me. Physical lifestyle, what we eat, how much sleep we get, how much we exercise, do we take ourselves for walks, do we drink enough water? That all impacts our ability to be fresh, to have vitality, to be creative, and to be on in our state of flow. So physical lifestyle is a big piece of it. And then there's mental burnout. As I said earlier, the boss gives you this big project that you've been waiting for a long time. You should be excited, but all you think about is all the work you already have to do. And when you're in this state, which we'll talk about later on in this talk, when you're in this state of overwhelm, the prefrontal cortex can't sort through critical from superfluous. Overwhelm is overwhelming. Everything seems like a mountain. And so we call it cognitive overload, cognitive scattering, but it happens and it's real and it has you feel like you just can't take on anything else. And sometimes when you're in this state of mental overwhelm or cognitive overload or cognitive scattering, sometimes all you need to do is go physical, like take an afternoon off, spend it at the park, go for a long walk, eat a really nutritious meal, do a yoga class, and recalibrate yourself, which we'll talk about. And then this relationship issue here, this is about teaching people how to treat you. It's about having good boundaries. It's about knowing what you need to say no to. Because no matter who you are and how awesome you are, you can't keep saying yes, 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 yes to everything if you're not saying yes to yourself. So let's move into it. Early warning signs of disengagement. You might be apathetic where before you weren't. You were going to be excited about something, or you just feel tired and you cannot get over that tired feeling, that feeling of exhaustion, kind of like when you're getting the flu and you just feel weak. If you feel like that every day, that's a sign you might be having some issues with burnout or disengagement. Change resistance. When people are saying, oh my gosh, we have a whole new project and all these things are going to be great. And your first thought is this again, it's not going to work, or resistance or resignation. That is a sign that something's off with you, or disconnected from people in general, disconnected from your work, disconnected from those things that you used to be passionate about, disconnected from people. We get our minds are a funny thing. When we're on, we're on. We could be invincible, but when we're off, it sort of takes toll on us in very big ways. And you want to start to also pay attention to your thoughts. Are you just disengaged with what's going on in this moment? Are you just experiencing burnout in this moment? Or has this been a long time coming? And then the other thing you really want to consider, maybe you're on this call today or on this workshop webinar because you lead people who are showing signs of apathy, burnout, disengagements, disconnection, resistance, resignation, frustration, anxiety, you name it. And you want to know what to do for them. One of the things you can do, which we'll talk about also, but for others, is to first notice where they are. Pay attention to where people are. Pay attention to where you are. And if your organization is constantly starting and stopping new initiatives, starting a new initiative, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to go to this one, and we're going to go to this one, and we're going to go to this one. And you're not really sure whatever happened to those, that could be a barometer reading on why people don't want to engage. As a matter of fact, my co-partner at work was doing some research for an article, and I believe that he said that Harvard Business Review just did an article that people are 40% less likely today to participate in a change initiative than they were before COVID. So people were much more interested in being ahead of the game, being in innovation. And, and across the board, they just didn't feel supported. And so that's another thing that leads to disengagement. So 8 reasons for change fatigue. We just talked about it a little bit. Excessive change, lack of communication about why things are changing or what the outcome is or what's next or what we're going to do or what we need from you. Unclear expectations, like assumptions, or we expect people to read our mind. Insufficient training and support. I have seen this in every company that's hired us because unfortunately in the business I'm in, there's very few people who are proactive. Actually, just got a call the other day from San Jose State University, one of their divisions, and they said, we are going to be experiencing massive change in the next 5 years. We want to support our people so they can flow with the change rather than resist it. That's the first proactive call I've ever got. And he found us because he Googled embrace change. But the truth is, most of the people that call us because they already did a change. They had a merger or an acquisition, or they moved to a new location, or they launched a new product, started a new division, brought in new leadership, and they've had so much friction and pain and turnover or just lack of engagement that then they'll call us for emergency support, which is never as powerful as doing it like the guy from SJSU, where he's proactive. Inadequate resources, lots and lots of changes, but not the right technology, not the right people, not enough of the right people, not enough partnerships, even on the outside. Just people that are a no, people that are oppositional. I'm working with a group right now. For years, this one division has been super resistant to technology, to innovation, to improvements. And we're coming to find the reason they've been so resistant is because they've never, ever been asked their opinion. And they're 60% of the revenue in the sales of the company. So they believe people are making decisions without asking them. Now, whether the organization pays any attention to what they say or implements what they say, it's really important if you want people to embrace change and not fight it, because the more people that are fighting it, the more people that are responsible for it are going to get exhausted and they're going to get sick and tired of working with those people who are no's. But if we bring them in and ask their opinion, and even if we implement one of 55 things they offer, we heard them, we took one of their ideas and we included them. There's something called liberating structures. And if you're managing change or responsible for change, you want to start to learn these liberating structures. There's a book about this thick, or you can just go online and Google liberating structures, or you can get a lot of it off of our website, because we believe and practice and teach the liberating structures for bringing inclusivity and partnership in around change. Poor leadership. You know, a lot of people get promoted to their highest level of incompetency. And I'm not saying you've got incompetent leaders, but some of you know you do. And they work really hard to become decent at leading people. And then we throw, oh, and now we're going to have this big change. We're going to bring in an HRIS or bring in a CRM, or we have new management coming in, or we're going to focus on culture for the next 3 years. And these people are having a hard enough time just leading people day to day, let alone bringing in this massive change initiative with timelines and initiatives and milestones and partnership and contribution. And so we've got to teach people, back to this insufficient training, we've got to teach people what it means to evolve through change, to lead change. And then, of course, workload and time pressure. My client that told everybody we're going to be working from 6 a.m. to 5 probably wasn't very popular yesterday when people got that email. What I would have liked him to say is, I would like everyone to have a quality of life. We're going to focus on around 8 to around 5. It's going to take efficiency. It's going to take technology. It's going to take partnership. It's going to take being in peak and flow states for us to do what we want to do, to take that hill and have a quality of life. but he doesn't know what he doesn't know, and he doesn't even know it yet, and he's new at this. And so he needs training, and he has hired us to train him. So that's all going to work out, but he's going to have some cleanup because not everybody wants to know that they have to miss their morning workout or do their morning workout at 4 a.m. in order to get to work. So excessive change, let's look at this. This is continuous or frequent changes in process, procedures, or organizational structure. Constantly new. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, we're doing that. We're not giving people time to digest. We're also probably not giving them enough information to digest. We're not going back and checking in. How do you feel about this change? How do you think these changes are going to impact you? Here's what we think they're going to bring to the table. And so in the absence of information, people make things up. Our brain actually generates, the average human being, between 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day, with 85% of them, those thoughts being negative and repetitive. Well, in the absence of information, or if things are constantly coming at us, like, Asteroid Game, back in the day when Asteroid Game was the biggest game out there, if things are constantly coming at us, it's hard to catch our breath, and it's hard to sort through all of those thoughts we're naturally having, and all of the negative thoughts and the repetitive thoughts, 85% that we're naturally having, and then have to adapt to this constant continual change. So the rule of school, the school of thought, the rule of thumb, 3 big change initiatives, maximum, but not the same people involved in those 3 change initiatives. So this is cohort 1. They are focused on this change initiative. This is cohort 2. They are focused on this change initiative. And this is cohort 3. When you have the same guy popping into all 3 cohorts, giving his opinion, having to have his hands involved, it actually creates friction for everybody, and especially that same guy or gal, because they can't really focus on what they need to. Lack of communication. In the absence of communication, people make things up. They almost never make up anything positive. This adds to the cognitive overwhelm, to the cognitive scattering, and to the thought barrages that are coming at us. So these are when changes are implemented without clear communication about why. What's the benefit of these changes? Why is this important to us? What's the outcome? How will it impact you? Otherwise, if that's not done, there's a lot of friction, confusion, frustration, for sure, anxiety and fear. And when people go below the line, which we'll talk about, but when they get into this state of no power and no freedom, and you're not in freedom and power when you're frustrated or afraid, they start building territories of protection, and they wall themselves off, and that causes even more miscommunication and even more problems. Unclear expectations. Just this week, now I was in Italy last week, and I just got back. 3 separate coaching calls, 3 completely different companies, and all 3 people said the same thing. I am getting feedback that my people are unclear of where their span of influence, where their span of control is, what they own, what they have autonomy to do, where they can be independently responsible, where their swim lane is. 3 separate companies, 3 separate leaders. I think this is a massive source of stress and anxiety, because how do I know what to give you if I don't even know where the mark is? Now, many people will say, I've told them what I need. I've told them what right looks like. But when I start to ask questions like, what would they have to not do, or what would they have to do in order to get fired? What are the minimum acceptable standards in this role? What's the ultimate purpose of the role? They don't have answers. They're kind of stunned. And so this unclear expectation, if every leader knew that this was the cause of lots of anxiety, lots of stress, lots of burnout, People don't want to play a guessing game. They don't want to play a guessing game at home, and they don't want to play a guessing game at work. So we need to slow down and get really clear with people on what we need. We've talked about insufficient training and support. There are 3 pieces of managing change effectively. First of all, there's understanding the different elements of a human system. A human system begins with me, but then it's me and another. And then it's me and that person and then another. And then there's a whole team. And then there's the organization. And then there's all the stakeholders. Problem is, because most people don't see the dimensions of a human system, they don't understand that there's disciplines that you have to master and get strong with when you're managing change. The first discipline is a conscious use of self. Every person on that team needs to understand their strengths, their weaknesses, their gaps, how they respond to change, how they react to change, how they can help with change, or how they inadvertently, unintentionally hinder change. There's a great link on our website. I'll have Brennan put it in the chat, and I think you can all read the chat of the link for a change readiness assessment. It's free, and then it'll send you how you scored and how you and your personality type deal with change. Anybody you're working with who you feel needs support with being ready for change or adapting to change, understanding change, pass that assessment to them for free. So back to the conscious use of self. What are you doing to me? Back to the conscious use of self. I need to understand myself before I can understand another. Then there's data, understanding the data that we're gathering when we're dealing with change, how we look at this data to make decisions. And then there's feedback loops. And then there's maybe an offsite or two, so people can understand how they need to navigate and raise the bar on how they deal with change. You and I both know many companies are not investing in this. It's not because they're jerks, because they don't know, and they don't know what they know, and they don't know what people need. And what people need is a lot of support around change. If you have never read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, and it goes into how different people, it's kind of like 5 dysfunctions of a team. It goes into these different scenarios of how people manage change or don't manage change or resist change or cause trouble for other people. And a big cause of burnout is because we're not on the same page. We're operating against or in spite of others. Inadequate resources. If somebody wants something big to happen, we need money to have that happen. I want to redo my floors because I had a flood. I need the money to make those floors happen. I need the resources. I need somebody to come in and lay the floors. I need time. I need a schedule. And then when I'm busy managing that project, I'm not going to be working. So I need someone to cover me for work. We often take on change at work without saying, what's our budget? What's our resources? Who's going to be on the team? Who's going to be doing what on the team? What are the roles on the team? What do we need to outsource? Are we bringing in a coach? Are we bringing in training? What do we need? We just a lot of times say that we want it now. Let's magically make it happen. And if you're on this webinar, you know that magic doesn't exist in business, and we need to actually have a plan, and we need to teach people what we need. Otherwise, we will overwhelm people. Go back to that situation where you have the same guy on 3 different change projects. His life is like a shell game, and he can't get his everyday work done because he's busy trying to navigate what he needs to navigate with all 3 projects. He doesn't have a captain of each ship. There's no champion of each of those projects. So everything has to go through him. So it's a massive bottleneck, and it doesn't work. Resistance. So here's the reason why people resist. Mostly they are afraid that how they were successful, how they made it is now going to be in question. And they're not sure they have what it takes to deal with these new changes, or that they want to put all that effort in. So they build up the wall. Now, resistance comes in the shape of obstinance. I'm not doing it. It comes in the shape of ignoring emails. It comes in the shape of meeting after meeting, back channeling, gossiping. Oh, yeah, we tried to do this here before and it didn't work. But you've got to understand resistance. And if you've got resistance and you're fighting resistance, it's just going to be more resistance because what you resist persists. So you've got to come down and you've got to get super curious, which is one of the disciplines of plan change. Curiosity, it's why you gather data. And then you've got to be curious about what that data says and include people. There's a discipline called infinite possibility versus finite. Finite is the same guy playing the shell game, managing the 3 change projects versus infinite, where I have developed a team of a cohort of people who are catalysts to take that change forward. You'll always get less resistance when people find themselves in a participatory mode and they're part of the change versus you're doing something to them. And so given the people on the call came to this call to look at how do I avoid burnout, I'm talking about people in the third person right now, but consider yourself. Where am I in this? What do I resist? Why am I resisting? If I'm saying no to something, why is that? And how often has this come up for me at work? When do I remember feeling this way before? Because you'll get to your root and it'll allow you to have this understanding, this conscious use of self. And when you have a conscious use of self, you'll know what you need to work on. So I do recommend that you take that free assessment online, and he will put it in the chat. He probably doesn't want to interrupt what I'm doing, but it'll be there before we go. Ineffective leadership. This is not giving guidance, not giving direction, not saying why or when or what we're going to take off your plate. I wrote this book called Ignite Culture. It's a bestseller. We have probably over 90 reviews on Amazon. And one of the things I keep hearing from people who read the book over and over again is they didn't realize that you need about 20% of your time to work on your change initiatives. So if this guy that's doing the, one-man band, 20, 40, 60% of his time is focusing on change. He can't do his day job. But if you are working on a change initiative, you need 20% of your working hours to dedicate to everything that needs to be done, and also leading that change, bringing people with you and rolling them into your idea and having you, point to the hill and then take people with you. That takes time. Coaching people, guiding people, getting out of the way, asking what's going on, including them, getting feedback. All of it takes time. And the magic number is 20% of time, which means you've got to do something with that workload, because you just can't keep adding more on. You will implode. And, we have more people burnt out today than any other time in my adult life. And I've been working for 30 years. But we can go back and say what happened. We have massive innovation, AI and more coming at us. We had a big surprise with supply chain shutdown after COVID. We know there's pandemics. Lots of people are working remote. The world has changed, and we have not given people time to adjust, or space, or training. So of course, we just talked about the 20% workload pressure. Now, most deadlines, unless you're a lawyer or in finance and it's a trade, or a doctor and somebody's like needs a shot or they're going to die, or surgery, most jobs, we've made up deadlines. We have artificial deadlines, and we keep using those artificial deadlines out of some fear that we're not going to get enough done and we're not going to be able to achieve our goals. But let's take a look next time we put a deadline and ask people, is this doable with everything else you've got going on? Is this an arbitrary deadline, or is this like a real deadline? Like things are going to stop moving and we're not going to be able to serve our client base, or we're going to lose client base if we don't get this. But this rushing in front of the truck, this exaggerated sense of urgency, people can't do it anymore because you need your prefrontal cortex available to be creative, to be innovative. And the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, cannot access full right hemisphere, full left hemisphere when you're in overwhelm, when you're exhausted. It's scientifically impossible. I was going to grab my brain, but it's behind the green screen, so no brain today. But the fact of the matter is you can just let your fingers do the walking. Basic neuroscience is when a brain is in, when a brain is in frustration, overwhelm, exhaustion, fatigue, burnout, you can't access your highest level of intelligence. It's not available to you because the adrenaline and the cortisol and the norepinephrine is all racing through your body and kind of acts as a guillotine to your prefrontal cortex. So it kind of comes down and puts you in protection mode. Also causes a lot of inflammation, not just in your brain, but in your body when you're stressed out. And this is all new knowledge. We might have talked about it before, but now science is backing up these claims of why we want people to be recalibrated and refreshed at work. So what can you automate? What can you get rid of? What are you doing that's tedious, repetitive? Things like information storage or information processing. What needs objectivity and quick speed? You want to look to automate as much as you can or delegate. For example, cleaning my house. I do wipe up and I'll clean up a spill, but I'm not spending my Saturday cleaning my house. No way. I work too hard. I want to be outside nurturing, nurturing empathy, creativity, all of these things. So I don't clean my house, I delegate. Other people have their dry cleaning picked up at their house. Other people have used technology to start organizing their closets, organizing how they get things done. What we need, by the way, I'm sure you've already figured this out, but everything in this column can be done by artificial intelligence. In our lifetimes, within a decade, anything that can be automated will be automated. But it will be years and years and years, I don't care what they're saying, and years and years and years and years and years before artificial intelligence can access empathy and creativity and relationship and morality and intuition and be flexible and understand symbology and have cognition of connecting the dots or looking for patterns in real day life, not patterns of technology. So just make a list quickly for you. What are you currently doing in your work or your home that can be automated? Think meal preparation. I'm not saying not to cook, but it's a massive industry where people deliver groceries ready to make meals. That cuts about an hour of time from people every day and another hour of time from people at the end of the week. But what can you automate at work? What are things you're doing that you can either outsource or automate so that you can have more access to your prefrontal cortex? This is right hemisphere, left hemisphere. Both of these, all these words here take a lot of integration of right hemisphere, left hemisphere. Left hemisphere alone is putting things in order, sequencing, looking at the part numbers. That's analytical, logical, left hemisphere. Right hemisphere is art, creativity, connecting the dots in something that is not logical, but that is in the space, like walking into a room and reading the tone. You got to be a human. You have to have cognitive awareness, and it's your right hemisphere who reads the tone. So just start to think about what you can automate in your job and at home. So there's something called liberating constraints, and that's starting to look at your schedule. What am I doing that is low value work? I remember when I used to own a recruiting company and my banker came in and he said, Maj, anything that you're doing that is not the rate that you're making in your paycheck, and I think back then it was $74.10 an hour. Anything that you're doing that is low-level work, under $74 an hour, you should not be doing it. It's low value. And I made a list, and man, was there a lot of things I was doing that did not require a $74 an hour paycheck. And so that's what I started with. And then I looked at what's my highest level value. For me, my highest level value is working with clients, leading retreats, creating content, leading programs. So I don't want to eliminate those things, but I can eliminate cleaning toilets. I can eliminate making big fancy meals 5 days a week for me and myself and I can eliminate, I don't want to eliminate dog walking, but on really busy days, I can delegate the dog walking, or I can use the dog walking to get exercise. The other thing in this is what are the things we can combine and get one giggle with two tickles. Anyway, I was going to say kill two birds with one stone, but it's a bad analogy. A case study in elimination. What in my business is high value that I cannot delegate? Once you make this list, go back again, because some things, just like this guy in the three-ring circus, he believes he's the only one because it's high value. But what he has done is he's not seen the talent that he has in his own company. He can't see it. He's always giving projects to the same people. But what's the highest impact to the business? What's the highest impact that I bring? And what can I and only I do? So make the big list and then put a star that you unequivocally have evidence that you're the only one who can do this. You certainly don't want to eliminate peak experiences, travel, novelty, getting into the zone, doing like I hike. I did the Camino last year. I would never delegate that. As a matter of fact, I took 3 weeks off and I would do it again and again and again. But these are things we need actually to refrain from being in burnout. You need peak experiences. You need novelty. It's a basic human need. If you're working all the time, like when I was a single mom raising my kids, working, going home, making the dinner, doing the things, doing the homework, doing the baths, doing the reading, working, blah, 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 blah. I had nothing over here in fun, nurturing, self-care. I had no life in that area, and I didn't even know that I didn't have it. Now I know, and I have quite the balance. Learning. You can't really eliminate or delegate learning. How much time do you need that you're putting yourself in a growth mindset? Well, if you're doing peak experiences, learning, high impact business, you've got to get rid of the caca. You've got to get rid of the things that you no longer. Health and exercise. You cannot delegate that. Nobody can breathe for you. Nobody's going to breathe for you. You need to drink water, eat good food, get sleep, exercise, do meditation or something mindful. Those are the 5 keys to neuroplasticity. They retrain the brain. They keep you fresh so that you can manage change. Also, quality relating with family and friends. You can't delegate that. You can't avoid that. So if you know this is what it's going to take for me to be a high functioning human long term, how many hours a week are you committed to spending in business? Novelty, learning, health and exercise, and quality relationships. In another one of our trainings, at this point, we would bring up our 112. If you wake up at 5 a.m. and if you go to bed at 10 p.m., you only have 112 hours. You start taking those 112, say, okay, I work 50 hours a week. Then, oh boy, I only have 60 hours left or 55. And then exercise for me would take up for sure an hour and a half a day, every day. Weekends, let's double down on that. Quality time with friends, not enough, but this includes phone calls, learning and growing. And pretty soon you see that all your time is taken. But if you do the 112 and you really look at the different domains of your life, and there's a lot that's not on here, and you look at how much time you're spending in each domain, you'll start to get the answer to why you're feeling burnt out. And if you already are doing this, but your teammates aren't, have people do that. Use the 112. If they wake up at 7 and go to bed at 9, then they have less time a week. Low level activities need to go. The other thing about low level activities is some of the things you're doing, you might discover not only do you not need to be doing them, but no one needs to be doing them. You don't even know why they're being done. So the amount of time it's going to take for you to do an inventory of all the things you're doing, what's high value, what's the only thing your brain, your creativity, your fulfillment, your self-actualization, your collective genius, whatever you want to call it. You have to be the one to do that. And then the things that make you feel good about your life, then you look at how much spare time you have. Then the other thing you have to do is start to look at how you're going to discipline yourself to do these things, because this is what will help you recuperate from this. So we talked about cognitive load. Anything you can automate, you want to automate. This is why we are big fans at Keen Alignment of artificial intelligence. We are not big fans of people saying that artificial intelligence will replace the human being, because it won't. Daniel Pink wrote a great book, To Sell is Human. And what he says that with the advent of artificial intelligence, all of us humans are going to need to be much better at relating to people, much better at the soft skills, much better at sales and service, and everything else that can be automated will be. So we want to look at how can we live our life, minimalistic. So one of the things that they recommend in the Flow Research Collective, which is one of the courses that I've taken that has helped me bring this kind of training into companies, is, this for a woman, for somebody who likes fashion, probably not going to work. But like Steve Jobs, every day he wore a black t-shirt. And other people, Simon Sinek dresses, he's one of the top public speakers, same outfit. So you don't have to take time to think about what you're going to wear. Another way of being minimalistic is ordering that food delivered to your house, so you don't have to think about what's for dinner Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it's all cut up, and you just don't have to think about it. Or having a schedule so every day at 5:30 I'm going to meditate. Essentialism. What must I do to be happy, healthy, loving, free, feel like I have autonomy, like I have liberation in my life, like I'm in control of my own destiny? What's essential? That's why it's really important to do these inventories. And then how much time alone do I need? How much recalibration time? I spend a lot of my time giving, talking. Sometimes I don't want to talk to anybody. Sometimes I just want to be in my car, listening to great music, or listening to a story, or in silence. I remember once during COVID, I had a friend spend a few weeks here, and he didn't understand why I got up and I meditated in silence. He got up and he wanted to chit chat, and I was like, talk to the hand. And we had a little talk about that, because he didn't understand the need for solitude, and I really need it. I need it in order to refresh my batteries. So what do you need? What's essential for you? How much time alone you need? What can you take off of the list and become a minimalist about? Where can you spend less money so you don't need to make as much money? I interviewed this woman, and she said, I don't need to make a lot of money because I don't spend a lot of money. And when I first heard this, I'm like, but money is freedom. But the truth is, some of us get ourselves in such debt that we can't help but be overwhelmed, and we can't help feel that we have to work because we owe. So where can you eliminate your debt and have more freedom so you can make better choices? And then where can you keep it simple? As much as you can eliminate or automate, it's very healthy to release your cognitive load. I'm writing my second book, The Millennial Heiress. Actually, it'll be my third book. I've hired an editor to do that for me. I've hired somebody to work on the cover. I can't do it all, nor do I want to do it all. I partner with someone at my office who's an impeccable writer. I've got a lot of the ideas, so we work together. Before, I would have the idea, I would write it down, then I would stress over what I'm going to say, then I would write it, rewrite it, write it, rewrite it, jump back from creative, which is right hemisphere, to editing, which is left hemisphere, and it took me 10 times as long. Now I meet with Brennan, we collaborate on an idea, I go off on all the things I want to say, he gets rid of everything I've said that makes no sense, And he writes a beautiful article, and we're getting a lot of recognition in global magazines and Forbes magazine. Wouldn't be possible if I had to be the hero doing everything myself. So let's talk about the flow cycle. Let's talk about what it means to get into a state of peak. Now, the title of this webinar was Avoiding Burnout, but the truth is you wouldn't want to necessarily avoid burnout if there wasn't something better. And what we want to get you into is this flow state. The flow state, and we talk a lot more about this in our Evolve the Leader Within. We have 8 2-hour sessions over 8 weeks. And you go deep into this flow research, and you go deep into fear melters and everything that gets in your way. But when you're in flow, imagine Steph Curry of the Warriors, or Michael Jordan of the Bulls, or any famous Serena Williams tennis player, or any athlete or singer, that they get into this state of the zone and they're rocking it. Doesn't have to be sports, and it doesn't have to be art. It could be business. It could be as a nurse. It could be doing any job, but it's in this state where you're operating at your highest and best, and you are connected to your overarching calling or reason for being or purpose in life, and your values are in sync, and you're humming along. You don't even look at the clock because you're just in the zone. Now, the truth is most people can operate here for 1.5 hours, 90 minutes to 2.5 hours, 1 or 2 times a day. But nobody can be in flow from 8 in the morning to 5 at night, or like my client told his people, 6 a.m. to 5 at night. Why would you? You're not going to get people in flow, so why do you have to mandate that? Even the crazy work schedule that the Americans have, 8 to 5 and 2 weeks vacation, they don't do that in Europe. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of really successful people in Switzerland and Spain and Italy and Germany and France that don't work the way we work, because what's important to them is flow. You need recovery, or we could call it a siesta if we're talking about Spain and Italy, but you need a time where you stop working, you leave the office, you go for a walk, you go get lunch, you go to the beach, you walk your dog, you go weight lift, you do whatever you do, you paint, but active recovery, because you're using a different part of your brain. And then your serotonin and oxytocin replenishes your body. By the way, you need serotonin to be happy, to be joyful, to feel fulfilled. When you're in flow too long, and you're dipping into the dopamine, you've got endorphins, and I can't say this one, anandamine, you've got a lot of high energy coming in. The body can't sustain that. It's unsustainable unless you're Tony Robbins, and then, you lose your voice because you never stop talking. Struggle. Often what happens to us is we're in flow. If we know how to do this, we go to recovery and we start working on something, and we get into this state of we don't know how to do it, or we're in overwhelm. And when we struggle, often what we do is we distract ourselves. We pick up the phone, we text somebody, we scroll TikTok because we want to feel good. We want a dopamine hit. We want to feel like we felt over here. But when we interrupt the flow cycle and we distract ourselves through social media or through smoking or through gossiping or whatever we're doing that is not just this state of boredom, we can't replenish this flow cycle. So when you work through the struggle, when you work through the frustration, when you stick with it and you get to the other side, what happens is your brain waves release, you get nitric oxide, and you go back into flow. So people who've mastered, this is the Flow Research Collective, people who've mastered this, you can see lots of their free videos online, or you can enroll in our Evolve the Leader Within, where we have 8 weeks where we teach this. But if you can master this, you're in a flow state several times a day, and you're putting out high quality, high value, high impact work. But you can't sweat the small stuff. You can't muck around with the BS, because the BS is going to eliminate your ability to go back into flow. And by BS, that's a technical term. It means friction in relationships, low-end work, repetitive tasks that you should not be doing with your level of intelligence and your level of creativity. We've done a lot of studies on what makes people happy. Being in a flow state makes people happy. Using their highest level of creativity makes people happy. Feeling fulfilled makes people happy. Coming up with new ideas makes people happy. Actually, on the 7 levels of effectiveness, the highest level of joy and happiness is synchronicity, which is 100% of the time people feel amazing, but right underneath it is a state of innovation. Why? Because you're using parts of your brain that are all creativity rather than same old, same old. So how to settle the snow globe. I actually have a snow globe too, but it's behind the curtain. Anyway, imagine I'm shaking a snow globe. Those are those 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And we want to settle those thoughts so that you can think. One of the big pieces that you're going to take away from today is, what are your 3 biggest sources of distraction? How do you distract yourself? What are the things that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing, don't want to be doing, are a low-level use of your time? And what 3 steps can you take to remove each? So I turned off all my notifications on my cell phone. I don't even know where my cell phone is now, right now. It's probably upstairs in my purse. I don't bring it with me when I'm in this studio recording. I removed Facebook notifications, and I do a lot of social media, so I could be constantly ding, 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 ding. I have do not disturb on my phone between 8:30 p.m. and 8 o'clock in the morning. So if somebody wants to reach me, they're going to voicemail, unless they're my protected people like my mom and my sons. What activities can you remove so that you can induce boredom? Now, I didn't get into it much now, but when you're in that state of struggle, if you stay in that state of struggle, you will experience, once you move through it, this state of boredom. Boredom is the doorway to creativity. So in the FRC and the Flow Research Collective, they want you to get into a state of boredom, like sit on a bench and do nothing for 20 minutes. Sit on your meditation cushion and just do nothing. Look at the paint on the wall. Don't watch TV. Get yourself into this settled position where the thoughts calm down and you can see what comes to you. So what activities can you remove so you can induce boredom intentionally? For example, watching TV or content while eating, reading while eating, reading the news between tasks, video gaming, listening to podcasts excessively. All of these are distractors. In about the 2nd week of the Flow Research Collective, they had us turn off all of our notifications, shut down all the windows, refresh our Google, and they taught us, when you're working on something in a flow zone, only have one window open, turn off the phone, and do not allow yourself any distraction for that 90 minutes. And boy, oh boy, did we got so creative. And to this day, when my team gets into a flow zone together, we will produce so much amazing content. But we don't allow ourselves to get distracted and talk about something else like typical meeting goes. So 6 levels of grit. You will need grit to avoid burnout. You will need grit to recover. Number 1 is perseverance, and this is typically perseverance in the self-care, believe it or not. Most people on this webinar don't sign up for this webinar because they don't have perseverance at work. They sign up for this webinar or take this webinar because they have too much perseverance at work. But this is perseverance for your own personal self-care. Thought control. You will need to catch yourself going off the rails and in overwhelm, and you'll need to reframe and retrain your brain so you can calm the snow globe down and come back to center. In our Evolve the Leader Within program, we have a whole 2.5 hours plus an hour of coaching on how to recalibrate and how to control our thoughts. Learning to be at our best even when we're at our worst. You know, we're all acting all day, every day anyway. We're wearing masks. We have, you know, these identities that we live into, these egos. Why not reframe our bad mood from making everyone else's life miserable to just doing our best to be our best even when life isn't great. I'm not saying ignore your negative emotions. You will not hear that in any of our training. We teach you how to move through. One of my friends, actually one of my mentors, just wrote a book, The Only Way Out is Through. You've got to process those emotions, but you can have an emotion or the emotion can have you. You don't want your emotions to have you. Train on your weakness. We have this assessment, this free assessment, Change Agility, that Brennan will put the link in. Find out what your weaknesses are and start to do some discipline in overcoming them. Master fear. Fear will take over. Fear has you believe things are going to happen that never happen. Tom Petty wrote a great song. Most of the things we worry about never happen anyway. But fear, this false evidence appearing real, is so big and it consumes us, and we listen and we think it's our intuition. Well, unless you have been training yourself and you are a master of your own intuition, you can't trust that intuition, because chances are it's your past and your ego not wanting you to get hurt again, telling you not to do something. I mean, I've been working on this game for a long time, and it's only in the last 2 years that I'm really hearing myself from my soul connection, my intuition. And by the way, here's another indicator, because people say, how do we know if it's my ego or my intuition? Intuition moves you positively. Even if it's something you shouldn't do, it moves you positively to not do it. Fear hijacks you. And then know how to get yourself in a state of recovery. So one of the last things we will do is rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 against each of the burnout triggers. How in control do you feel at work? 1 is I don't feel in control at all. 10 is I feel in total control. How am I honoring my values? Are my values expressed in the line of work that I do and in how I work and where I work? 10 is it's a values match. 1 is it's not at all, and anything in the middle is some conflict. Am I rewarded for the level of creativity and innovation I'm bringing to the table? Notice how I didn't say, am I rewarded for the level of work? Because the truth is, what I've learned in my work with the Flow Research Collective, a lot of us are busy being busy, but we're not being productive, we're not being innovative, and we're not being creative. We're getting work done by being inefficient. You do not want to be rewarded for working long hours. You want to be rewarded for producing powerful results. Big distinction, and it is a distinction of people who operate in a state of flow, because they don't want to trade time for money. They don't want to work more and more hours. They want to work less and less hours, like Tim Ferriss in the 4-hour work week. They want to be doing work that only their creative genius can do. Work overload. Have you said yes to too much or not no to enough? Is there unfairness? Do you feel like there's like this person telling people they have to start working at 6 a.m.? He wasn't thinking. I am going to have a talk with him, because you can't take away people's personal time, and you can't expect people to be up at 4 in the morning just to get their mojo on before they go to work. Community, lack of community will lead to burnout. How well is your community serving you? How well are you serving your community? So just take a snapshot of this. I'll get out of the screen and you can take your score later on. This will help you know where you want to get to. So how do you solve the root problem for burnout? Lack of control. Negotiate new workflow. Communicate about where you need more autonomy, more authority. Values conflict. If you're not aligned with the company you're working with, need to find a new place that you are, or find out how you can contribute to closing that gap. We work with a lot of companies that struggle with values alignment, and it actually needs attention. But if they don't want the gift that you have, that you want to help with it, or they're not interested in getting better, then maybe it's time for you to go. Insufficient reward. Really look at the value you're providing and the level of creativity and how you're moving the business forward, not how much work you're doing. Change your perspective on that and then look at what value you're delivering and then ask for the kind of money you want for the value you're delivering. Work overload. I know people every year they skip their vacation because they don't have any place to go. Take a staycation. The truth is people probably are effective no more than 32 hours a week. Truth. People need to take a week of recalibration somehow, some way each quarter, whether it's personal time, personal days. But the more astute your employer is, the more they'll know this. Take time away from work and rest. Candidly address problems that you see happening with favoritism, personally or professionally. And as far as lack of community, build feedback loops in. Part of the disciplines for change, which we talk a lot about in our Change Agility online program and our, I think, 1 year long program for Change Catalyst, is feedback loops. You need to build little cohorts, just like this guy with his 3 different ring circus. You need a team of people working on something that works together to make the organization better or bring change through. So just a few more slides. This is the slide demonstrating you must have active recovery to elevate your performance. We go into this much deeper in a different training. Make your work binary. Eliminate the gray zone. Have very specific things you do to recover. Very, very specific over here in this column. What are you doing to recover? Whoop. And then when it's work, it's work. And you'll take a look at this. These are the different chemicals entering into your body during work. These are the different chemicals entering in your body during recovery. You need both. And you especially need this to enter into a state of joy and happiness, serotonin. Absence of serotonin is called depression. Dopamine is what has you feel like I am all that. And then, start telling the truth about this gray zone. I almost have no time in the gray zone, and I believe it's had me age very nicely, if I don't say so myself. So the difference between active recovery is this big gap. The difference between no recovery is I work, and then I get less and less and less effective. And again, we get deep into this. Another thing we go into in our Evolve the Leader Within is the 4 kinds of fear and how to melt those fear and how not to have that fear impact you in a negative way. So there's fight, flee, freeze, and faint. And then there's melters that we teach you. And we also work heavily on the gut and the brain connection. Your stomach will give you signs that you are stressed out, overwhelmed, having a problem before your brain ever connects it. So pay attention to your digestion. Pay attention to how you feel. There is this nerve, that's the vagus nerve, that goes through your whole body that creates wellness. So the stomach will tell you when something is off. And by the way, why do you need rest and recovery? Because rest and digest is what allows you to digest not just your food and the liquids, but it allows your brain to digest what you just learned. If you ever notice at a conference, you're at a conference and you're at the conference and the first session's great and the second session's great. And by about the 5th session, you can't take in anything else. The best thing to do in that case is to leave, because you're not going to remember anything because you're at cognitive overload. It's when the conference industry understands that, maybe they'll never change because that's how they make money. But when the people going to the conferences understand that, actually, they'll take less classes. They'll also go to less meetings during the day because the body and the brain cannot process useless information. Okay, this is the last part. This is from Flow Research Collective. And again, we go into this deep in our Evolve the Leader Within. 20 different ways you can get yourself into active recovery. And, it doesn't take a whole week-long vacation to do this. Hot bath, breath work, sauna, cryotherapy, ice baths, cold shower, meditation, float tank, nature, massage, sleep, yoga, myofascial release, stretching, play, pressure of a weighted blanket, belly laughing, and yoga nidra. We've got to take care of ourselves. That's that grit and determination. I talked earlier about It is 9:30, so we have to end. I talked earlier about coming, letting those thoughts settle and coming back home to recalibration. If there's anything that you leave this 1 hour webinar with, is make time for you. Look at your 112 hours and how much time do you have. Invest in yourself. This is a program we are leading. If you want to click that link, it'll tell you about the program. This is our first ever public workshop / seminar. It's online. It's 2 hours a week starting at the end of June. If you just want to check it out, send it to your friends. It's under $300 and you get 16 hours of training and 8 hours of group coaching. There is nothing that we've ever done for the public like this. Normally, the only people that get to take advantage of these trainings are people that are spending 100,000 with us and they have big problems and they want us to go help their people. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm sorry I went over a little. Best of success to you. And Brennan will also put the link in for the free change readiness assessment. Bye-bye.